Difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. That's something I've been living by since 2016 when I really started to work on my mental game and mental toughness and overcoming adversity and resiliency. I'd always worked on it in my life, but I really started to put a conscientious effort towards seeking out materials and inspiration exactly for this, and just realizing that every challenge presents an opportunity for growth. As uncomfortable as it may be, the reason it's uncomfortable is because you're learning something, you're being stretched in a way that you've never been stretched before, and when you get past it and you push through to the other side, you're going to be a stronger, more wise individual than you were prior to that challenge ever meeting you. So I always seek every opportunity I can in a positive light, as into what can I do today that's going to make me better for tomorrow. So this was something that was created during a bachelorette party, believe it or not, but I saw it and I had to create it. I had to have it in my house because the significance of it is just so important to me. And with this diagnosis, nothing is changing. And I'm going to talk more about that diagnosis coming up next. The good and the good and the good life. We put the good and the good and the good life. We put the bad in the past, now we alright. Hey Lonnie, I got you. Yeah. So first I want to just run through the day of surgery, which was on 9/9, and just what that day entailed. So our check-in for surgery was at 11:30 a.m. And when I arrived, we check in, we're waiting, they call you down and escort you down into the pre-surgical area. I got in a gown, they put a 5-lead EKG, a heart monitor on me. I got an IV. They gave me, they took some blood and asked if I could be part of a research study that requires nothing of me going forward. They just use the information gathered during my surgery and from my labs and from my case going forward to conduct research to, better the ovarian cancer studies. And at that time, there was no diagnosis. It's just they knew that it was a possibility, so they wanted to collect my consent before the surgery. I received 2 oral medications. One was Tylenol and one was gabapentin. Tylenol, as you know, is just an over-the-counter pain medicine, and gabapentin is typically a nerve pain type of medication. I'm not 100% sure why they give that to you prior to surgery. So if you know, please comment below. I know I have some nurse friends out there that work in surgery, so if you know why that medication is given, please let me know. I'm sure I would be experiencing some nerve pain during the surgery. They took my weight. They had me urinate into a cup. And that was the pre-surgical area. I mean, the surgeon herself, the gynecologist-oncologist, came to meet me for the first time. She had not assessed me before. I was assessed by another team in a different location, and that physician was actually going on vacation right after she assessed me. So in order to get this surgery as fast as I could, which was the following week, she passed me on to one of her partners that worked at another hospital. So this new surgeon, had talked to me over the phone, but had just saw me for the first time prior to surgery. She hadn't assessed my belly or anything like that, but she answered all of my questions. I felt incredibly confident in her and her competency. Another thing that happened, a lot of doctors came to visit me. A medical student, an oncologist came to visit, just, asking any questions, helping me clarify anything right before the surgery. They signed my consent. My consent was very long. They had to add multiple types of ectomies, or we're going to remove different types of things from your body potentially. So they want your consent before they do it. So anything that wasn't on there, they can't get consent for after the fact. They do it beforehand. So I signed consent. An anesthesiology came to speak to me. He mentioned doing inhalation agents and also IV agents, propofol and Versed. I personally refused the inhalation agents. As you get to know me on this channel, you'll realize I don't respond well to a lot of medications. I have a lot of food sensitivities, and majority of the things affect my brain. So I get like brain fog, I start to stutter, my memory starts to go, and they last for a long duration. And my understanding about the inhalation agents is it does have some brain effects. This has no implication on how fast you wake up, etc. But for me and my history, if it wasn't necessary for me to have an inhalation agent, I refused. And he was okay with that. And then a anesthesiology resident came to see me a little bit later, right before I got wheeled into the room, and offered me a calming agent. I may have been Ativan, I didn't ask. All I knew is that I didn't want the calming agent. I didn't need it. I felt confident in the team. I felt confident in the experience. I work in healthcare, so I understand how the OR works and how everybody has their role, and they're all looking out for you in different ways. It's a very teamwork type of environment, and you speak up, and they are going to do the best that they can. And guess what? They know so much. They really got it under control in there. So I did not feel very nervous about the procedure at all, as extensive as I knew it was likely going to be. But this is what they do every day. Maybe not my exact case, but they do these surgeries every single day, round the clock. My surgeon has been practicing on her own since 2011. That doesn't even account for her training prior to that. I mean, the many years of training that she has prior to that. So I just felt incredibly confident in their capabilities, and I just let it go. This was happening. It's going to happen. I want it to happen, and I just let it go. The one time I got a little excited was when they wheeled me into the OR. When I was being wheeled in and the cart was going and I was getting placed on the table, I did feel a little bit of a flutter, like, ooh, this is happening now. But then within minutes, they knocked me out. They didn't even tell me they were going to knock me out. I was just out. And then the next thing I knew was that I woke up in the recovery area. And I knew nothing that had happened. When I woke up in the recovery area, this is where I get a little foggy on my memory. I was shaking. I do remember shaking incredibly hard. And I remember the nurse that was in there saying, "I'm just glad you're not shaking anymore." She must have done something, maybe given me a blanket. ORs are kept incredibly cold to keep infection low because you are an open body. So it's very cold in there, and maybe that's why I was shaking. I could have been shaking because of pain. I don't know. I didn't perceive pain. I just knew that I was shaking. And I remember being able to speak very clearly to her and make a lot of sense, but I can't necessarily say that I remember everything that was said to me. I don't remember how I found out about my diagnosis and what they found when they did the surgery. I did know that it was very late, and I got eventually wheeled up to my room where my husband had been waiting to see me. And I just want to give him a lot of credit to what he had experienced, because he did it all alone. He was the only one allowed in the area because of COVID. So he was there by himself, just relaying the news to close friends and family, and some coworkers that wanted to know as well. anytime that he got an update, which seemed to be about every 2 hours, he would relay the message to everyone. And he had to experience this by himself. So when my surgery was supposed to take 2 to 4 hours, and it ended up taking 8, my husband had to endure that essentially alone. And I got the good end of the deal because I knew nothing that was happening. I just got knocked out and just woke up. I'm also in medical, so hearing things, it's just not as shocking to me because I see these things all the time. I hear these stories all the time. It is a little different when it happens to yourself, but it's kind of like the drill, so you kind of know what's expected. When you're not that kind of a person like him, it can be very scary, and you don't know what questions to ask. You may not even understand 100% what they're saying. You're just absorbing it and hoping for the best. I think that would be incredibly scary. And I think that is where the fear comes from, is just from the unknown. So there's a lot of unknowns when you're not a person that works in medical. And I think that, that's just very, very hard on somebody. So I give him a lot of credit. He did say that once they relayed to him that it was cancer, he did break down. And that was somewhere between the 3 and the 6 hour mark of the surgery. So he waited many, many hours to find out that it was cancer and then had to absorb that by himself. And he did say he lost it. So I just give him a lot of credit for being the great communicator that he was, and staying there and just being as strong as he was. So now the cat's out of the bag, and you know that I have cancer. So when I was wheeled up to my room, my husband didn't want to leave until he got to see me. And I really appreciate that. I mean, I would probably do the same, but I can just only imagine what he was feeling. But I do know that we got to the hospital at 11:30 a.m. and then he didn't leave the hospital until 3:30 a.m. the next morning. So that can tell you what kind of day that he had. And I don't know who relayed the information to me, but if it was my husband, if it was the doctor, I don't know who told me because I was still, under anesthesia. I knew I could communicate well, but I think my memory was very affected by the anesthesia. So I just know that I found out that I had cancer, that the surgery was supposed to take 2 to 4 hours, and it took nearly 8 hours. And so I was under for a very long time. And they were doing their best, to be very meticulous and get it all out, which I really appreciate. That means they took their time and they were very diligent, and I really appreciate that. So what I found out was that I had a complete hysterectomy, so that means I got both ovaries and fallopian tubes removed, along with the uterus and cervix. I had my peritoneum, part of it, removed. I think of a peritoneum as kind of like a saran wrap that holds your organs in on your body. It's like this clear connective tissue that just kind of sucks everything in. And attached to that is something called the omentum, which is just a fat pad. They removed some of that. They removed my appendix. They removed a foot of my colon. And they scraped my diaphragm. And in addition, she said she cauterized and burned some cells that looked cancerous just in various areas. So I had a very extensive, long surgery. My incision line is just above my pubic bone, up around my belly button, and just a couple inches below my sternum, my chest bone. So I had this very large, open abdomen, and they worked really hard on me. And I will show some pictures of the incision and part of the healing process. I did take a picture as soon as I got my phone, so I had a very fresh picture of the incision right after it happened. And then I took pictures in my bikini again, just for the sake of consistency, so that you can see it over time. And so that's what happened. And then the rest is just me recovering in the hospital. So I'm going to do another video on that, just for the sake of time. But thank you again for watching and being interested in my story and sharing my story. Remember, there is somebody out there that wants to hear this.